Hello. Are we here? Are we here? Okay. Yeah, so we're back. We're back from our bathroom break, and then after I had stopped it, I realized that I would like the streams to, I mean, that just broke up this video, but that's okay. But if you're just starting this video, you could go back and watch the first one. We entered into a ritual. We entered into the plane of imagination together. We raised our imagination flag here, and we're in it. And so we've been working with these materials. Working with the materials. And so I was thinking of, like, we're just going to continue where we left off. Pull through dreaded shoulder, relaxed shoulders. Now, this is another part. This is something that I wanted to pull through. I wanted to pull through because it's a pocket with 2 layers, and I want to pull through something that, if I want to mark through where these cuts start and stop, so that I can see on the other side where I want it to pull through. And we're pinning in 4 corners where the slits were made. And so that we can see at what area does it pivot, at what area, if I wanted to pull something through, at what point will it be bending to go in that direction? At what point do we change our direction? Do we pull through to the other side of what it is that we're facing? And here I'm noticing places that I want to pull through, and as the slits were made in a horizontal direction on the horizon, I want these vertical lines to be pulled through to the other side. And so I might mark then where is it that these are pulled in each place, like the layers of our mind. I'm thinking of like spiraling as development and growth, and how each time the spiral reaches the next point, it reaches the same point, but it's a little bit more expanded. I think of that in terms of development and also like non-linear thinking and that just like expansion through growth. In a sense, I suppose linear can be where we started. It can be a point between where we started and where we're at, but who's to say where we really started? Was it at the moment that I was cut from the umbilical cord? Or some people don't get cut, some people allow the umbilical cord to naturally fall off, but then there's also like conception, but even before that, like that there's energy and matter and spirit, and they all have relationships or not in each person, perhaps. And now cutting through, this is the layer that will be touching the skin, and the other layers, the pocket, the patch pocket. And I'm wondering, do I go around this leaf? I'm just going through the leaf. And here, going through the leaf again, although maybe I could have just left it and then pulled through the other side. So this is where we're at, and I'm wondering which side of the slit should be released to be pulled through. Here. And here. And here. Now we can remove the pins and flip it over, reflecting the prescription of our poetry into the life of this. The life of this garment. Okay. So this is the pole. This is the pole. And it feels like this needs to be pulled if any anybody wants to chat in, I'd love to talk. I'd love for your presence to be a part of our story and reflection. So, okay. Here we are. And okay. So I realize now that when we do this, it closes the pocket. And that's just what it is. Also, the state of imagination is making me feel like it's making me be reminded of this sense of like tiredness and delirium that is also a space of imagination and dreams. But here we're working with this energy intentionally, and so it becomes a direct avenue for this space of integrity to be not just contained within one garment or within one design, but the integrity is like a recognition of all of the relationships involved in this synthesis. And so we're just going to pin this here for now and move on to another aspect that is calling, because I'm sensing that more things will be pulled through. And I'm sensing that well, it looks like I already sewed this placket shut. So I'm going to remove the buttons, remove the option from our perspective, remove the option of that, at least one side of it, because now these layers have been stitched together, and what remains is the shadow of what was pulled through. And releasing the buttons. Will they be reintegrated into this piece or another piece? How does this reflection land in your reality? How does this reflection land in your reality? Ooh, 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 ooh. Moving this around, I want these materials to extend into each other. Expanding the materials into a resynthesis with each other. But then, where is the material? At what point will it be extended? Will it be the placket? Both plackets. The plackets actually are those would be good places to extend because they're ready for it. The reason they're ready for it is because I can tell through looking at the seams that each placket, both sides of the placket, they're added on pieces. So I wouldn't be cutting at the material, because once I cut into a material, I know that I have to go back and finish it so that it doesn't continue to unravel at this stage. And so here the plackets are stitched on as individual pieces. And there's a seam right here that I can unpick, and when I unpick it, it will be released from this line. And something I'm thinking about now is that, like, this material, since it's a low quality, that means that it could get snagged and it can get damaged really easily. And it almost makes me feel like oh, my friend just messaged me. Maybe they want to see. I'm streaming. Yeah, so I'm thinking, like, oh yes, regenerate. Sometimes our conscious mind does not know. And sometimes our conscious mind does not know, yet our body knows. And So if this material gets snagged, as it already has a run or some it already has some threads hanging out over here. Yeah, it looks like it started to unravel, and our body knows. And so if I want to reestablish the quality of this material as a high quality material, then I feel like all that is needed is an intention for the integrity. And so if it is already unraveling, if it is already ripply and plasticky, spongy, and we acknowledge that and we accept that. And so we work with that. We work with what it is. And then the value of it, what creates value, what generates value, what are our values, reclaiming the narrative of waste, recreating value within waste. And here we are. Ooh. Releasing this, and as it's being released, it now feels open, like the framing. It's almost like I'm unframing this from being held in time and space. And I'm also seeing these flowers like in here. Can you see? It looks like something could be put through here, and that's something that could be pulled through. I want the texture. I want to continue playing with the texture. And whose voice is this? Whose voice is yours? Who will wear this? Who will hear this? Who will share this? And who will feel this? As the border releases, as the border releases, release, 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 thinking of sound waves and thinking of the threads, being released. It seems like the buttons that were stitched on here were hand sewn because they're knotted really well. Something here. My safety pins. Here. Extending to the shoulder, becomes an anchor in the shoulder. Being, this being, okay, and here we're going to be unstitching this other placket, the other side. And let us see. Let us see. Then, if everything is professional, then what? Becomes accessible. If everything is accessible, then what becomes professional? And is that even needed? Access to our inner sovereignty, access to how we navigate our consciousness. As I navigate this, how do I navigate my consciousness in this moment? It's in a it's between the materials and what comes up intuitively in my mind. And it's also the feeling of being in my body. It's also a reflection of when I was wearing and dancing in this, the poem that came through. And then, as this placket becomes released, it is another shape. It is another dimension. It is from another side. From another anchor. Another point of anchoring. And each anchoring of existence, what does that illuminate? Where something is held, where something is. The word coming to me is rejoice, but why would it rejoice? I don't want, what am I rejoicing? And this moment is like a release from the placket and its border, the placket and what it was bordering, and the frame that it was holding. And as it is released, I now feel I'm holding this here, and I'm imagining it bound. Pull through the dreaded shoulder. Does this become pulled through? So let us see here. On the other side, the placket turned and moved to this side. And then flipped over. And has a wider capacity this second time around. We started with the other side, and now we're on this side, and it has a wider capacity for what it is. And I almost want to bring this out into the underarm seam, because that is where the other side is. And the way that I'm talking, enunciated, does it come from something that I've heard? Is it Is it my voice? The voice of which self? Of which reflection? Is it a reflection of enunciation while also feeling like the sound, the spectrum of sound throughout my whole body, from the lowest, from the deepest depths that I can articulate, the deepest depths that I could express, all the way up through to the lightest. That's what this voice feels like. And it feels like it journeys through those different frequencies. And even in that I can explore, or even in that I could expand, or even in that it could become a pattern that is a reflection of some aspect of self, somewhere inside myself, the materials, the poem, and then even beyond the illusion of self. How does that land? Does that land anywhere for you? If this is the front, I'm almost feeling like I'm almost feeling like these are like places of volume for breasts, for those parts of ourselves, for our chestises, and pulling this in to concentration in between. And I'll tie a knot to reduce the volume, to hold our gathering in place, as what we have gathered has become a space for what is nourished, for our tenderness, for our latching and unlatching. And then there's the feeling of an imposter. And then there's not really giving a care about it. And then there's a curiosity to listen. From my evolving perception to yours. Is there a barrier somewhere between this? is it just the petals holding the sun? What is it? Am I everything? Am I nothing? Where am I in my body? Where am I listening from my computer? From my camera? From my heart? Am I pulling this through? Am I now pulling this through? Where a miter was once made, how do I pull this miter through? And what holds this miter? And do I pull more miters along the axis? And then the axis of resonance. What is your axis of resonance? What is your axis of resonance, and which resonance in each one, in each place, holding space for when you get to it on another day, on another time. The perpendicular axis also reveals to be at that point, because is an axis a point? Is it the center point between multi-axes? And then is it torn on the other side? Is it torn? Does it become another axis to follow? Where does this one lead to? I see this axis trailing down to the hem. I see the trail. I feel entangled. I feel like, oh, okay, I just tore the white axis, but the blue thread is still intact. And enunciating tenderness becomes a stream of enunciating, becomes a stream of navigating through our sovereignty of choosing where to place our awareness as we're creating and recreating our lives. in each moment. If you're here and watching this stream, tune in to the chat. Let me know where you're at. If you are creating anything, if you're tending to anything in your lives, if you're tending to even if it's cooking food, even if it's breathing, even if it's your family or your friends, or if it's drawing a picture, if it's washing your face, what might you be tending to, and how might you engage from a place of consciousness? Or how do you infuse intention into your movement? And how maybe you have other questions, maybe you have questions. I would like to know your questions, because I think that can be really powerful to ask our own questions, because I think that how we frame them, like how our question, what our question holds space for, reflects in the capacity of the answers that we receive. And so if you have any questions to the multiverse, to the axes, I've been pulling at this thread because here there is a tear on either side of the shirt, and it's all twisted, but the other side I did the same thing. But I want to know what the length of the other side is, because perhaps that will be a reflection of this side as well. And if you are just tuning in, I started this sewing ritual in another video. And then I took a bathroom break and continued. So feels like these we're at a point of knotting off the axis. And so we have 2 points. We have 2 points of an axis, and we're we are in multi-dimensional space. And so with our imagination flag here, and I'm curious how that's reflecting in your experience. And I'm curious about what you're curious about. Okay. Let's hold it up. Look, here we have collars. Stitched, reflecting collars. Okay. What will this become? Let us see. Oh, right. I was wondering about this part looping in at some point, but maybe not. I'm also not really sure about the placement of where these voluminous chest areas, like where does that even land? Where does the nourishment land? At some point I will have to put this back on and think and dance and move again, because there's different feelings happening, going different directions as well. And right now I'm thinking of what is happening. I'm thinking I'll need to secure these parts. I almost want to bind these to something. Bind these rebound. Bound for thinking about the feeling of bound. It's like something that is wrapped, but also thinking of like something that's bound for a place does that mean that they're like wrapped as does that mean that they're like wrapped in all of their preparedness to reach a destination? Okay, I do have some safety pins here marking that these places will be stitched together, and it's making me want to cut all these buttons off because we don't need these buttons anymore. So as we've been releasing the bindings, we are in a state of release where we're not bound. Although there's still some bindings. There's still some things binding us. There's still some things binding us, but there's parts that are being released. In particular, the plackets and the buttons. And here is a facing. It's interesting. I want to open up this facing because I think that there will be a diamond shape. So one of the ways I release a stitch line is to clip every 3 stitches, like if it was just going down the line, every 3 stitches. And then by the time you get all the way around, you can just flip it over and then pull the thread on the other side, and it will just come out. And so that's one way to do it. But sometimes if it's kind of difficult to see the thread, I'll like open it up to get started, and then I'll unclip it like this, just kind of like gently pulling it apart. And then while I was saying that, I was thinking, if I just open it up a little bit to get started, it's like that feeling of doing something new that I've never done before. And sometimes it's like, how do I know what it will be? How do I know what will happen? And I don't. I just have to open up and get started and trust that more things will open up. And like, it's almost like we need to experience it for ourselves to really believe it, no matter how many times people tell us that once a door closes, another one opens. It's like, how can I receive any new energy if I'm compromised with old things. And I think a lot of people, like, I don't know, for myself, I can visualize that and that makes sense to me, but when it comes to actually doing it, like, it's hard. It can be challenging to bring myself to a place of actually doing that, but like, I've done it before and magic has just like, the path has magically unfolded, and then we learn along the way, and then I think about how to reroute. How do I become more specific? Am I being picky or something? But I think that being specific can bring a lot of clarity and also freedom. So in a sense, like, I have had to go through experiences before enabling the specificity. Okay. And here, this was my guess, was that there would be a diamond because I could see the seam, I could see the fold, I could see the stitch line, and it took a while to get there, but now that I've reached it, I had to kind of open up the other seam before I got to this one, and now that I'm here, I can see that it was top stitched. It was a miter. You see the miter inside of here? Like here and here. So it was top stitched, and then there's another seam line, and it looks like it has some back stitching. So I had to go inside to really release those stitches so that I don't start making holes in the fabric. And this might not be a diamond, it might just be like a cross. But let us reveal. Let us be revealed. Let us be seen as we are. Let us see ourselves as we are. Let us learn to acknowledge this and accept this in our reflections, in our acceptance through our interactions. What are you doing? I'm just doing. I'm just doing like in the rising sun. But actually the sun is setting where I'm at. And so, where did the dewdrops go? Where did the dewdrops go? Where did they go throughout the day? Did they evaporate? Did they move into the atmosphere? Did you breathe them? Did you breathe in the dewdrops crystallized with the rising sun? Is there dew where you are? Oh, 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 the diamond! The diamond. Okay, so it's actually just one slit. Do you see this? Do you see how this one slit became a facing and like a vent in the sleeve hem? This one slit. Now comes the question of continuing to release this, because this is a very small pleat that's been stitched around all the way around the sleeve hem. That was once the bottom of the hem, and now it's been opened up. And now I think it's time that we stitch around, that we unstitch around. What is it that is unstitch around, unstitch around, unstitch around, unstitch around. Ooh. When I unstitch around the hem, the bottom edge, the bottom edge of my shell. It was finished. And that finish has been released to become again, each day, at each capacity, whether it be day or moment or breath. Breathing, relaxation, and exhaling. Deep connection. Exhaling our interconnectivity. So I sew, and as I sew, I wonder how it is, if it, to be in this space to continue this throughout the next couple of months and possibly beyond that, continuing, finishing bringing our synthesize being collection to a state of finish. Okay? And now that that's been released, I just want to think about how this situation relates to pull through dreaded shoulder, relaxed shoulders, the sleeve, relaxed, release the sleeve hem, warmth, I am, egg, escape, escape, shell, and as it is here, I can release this collar. Release this collar if I find my scissors. Scissors, scissors, cutting, scissors, cutting, scissors, thread, cutting, scissors, thread. Here they are. The way I'm speaking, it also makes me feel like there's something grand that I'm revealing. And perhaps that is just something I'm noticing. Because relative grand, something grand, relative grandness. Ooh, I love me a sew-in interfacing. I can't, although it seems like it might have been fused at one time, but it's definitely not fused anymore. And I love that, because in deconstructing this, there doesn't have to be any like flakies from the old glue, which just really lightens my heart. Perhaps that is a grand feeling of sew-in interfacing rather than fusible interfacing. So, what is it then? The narration of our dreamscape, or the or that coming into the waking state, or transcending any difference between the two. So now I can fold these in towards each other. And they are held. Oh, it looks like the interfacing is already folded into the other side, so I'll need to refold these. But it also makes me wonder, how do you know from what you know from your reflection of it now? Where is your reflection of it now? The reflection of you now. Now. Ooh. Ooh. Ah. Yeah. It might be easier to just remove this button. That's definitely easier. I do have my sewing machine set up, and so while a lot of this is handwork, hand sewing, at the same time I can transition back and forth. What I'm thinking now, though, is like, will I pin it? Will I press it? Will I sew it with the machine? Or will I just stitch and pin as I go along? And That feels better. So, pardon me. Pardon my burp, but we're pulling out our black thread and ooh, I'm just seeing something. I know that I'm gonna need to release the other hem diamond. I'm also thinking like what will be here. This is the hem. Something. What will be held in this place? Since there is a slit, there is an opening. And what is this opening? See how this leaf has become whole from two separate parts. I love that. And so then, so now, so when. So then, so now, there's a lot of like feelings happening, like even as this is crumpled on the table, it's giving me impressions of what I would like it to be when I pick it up. And that's interesting. And so we're gonna go in and anchor our threaded knot into the material. Threaded into the material. It is here. I think of the capacity of this space to be bending and transforming, and how is that reflected in like a straight stitch? Holding the pieces through as I am closing this, I wonder what wants to be, does something want to be sandwiched in here? Oh, maybe it is this. Because it's already here. So I think I might as well. The only thing then is there like a part that is released or something? Like, does it only extend from shoulder seam to shoulder seam, or is it like, is this part released? Is this part no longer gathered? Because it has this kind of like border shape to it. I almost want to release the gather. Yeah. Letting you speak for yourself here now. Okay. So, bringing this into here. And so, there's a lot of shoulder to shoulder seams going. It seems these shoulder seams. Just pinning in place to see. So what comes up? I'm going to remove the gathering from the border piece. Whatever that means for you. And pulling it until there's no slack, but now distributing. And as we're here, releasing the armhole seam of the of the white sleeve. And we can even knot it off if we like. And I think I would like to do that. Sitting down to do this feels almost exhausting. Am I exhausting myself? Or is it something that is, or is it a space where I'm like either putting myself to sleep or I am holding this space. Holding this space for our subtle reflections. Holding this space for our subtle reflections. Reflecting on the waves, reflecting on these long journeys and what they will become. What will this become after this entire week? And what am I present with? You, what are you present with? How are we reflections of each other? And through, as I unstitch the part of the armhole seam, so that I can make sure that I am only sandwiching in this central section, and there's two seams going up either side, so if I release the bottom, then I can finish this piece off as it so becomes, as I sew it as it becomes. And yeah, just releasing a bit of it, not the whole thing. Just enough to give me some space to sandwich it in there, and then I can always add more. Release. I can always release more if I need to when I get there. And thinking about what energizes me to be so patient in this process. I think it's like the feeling in my belly that's imagining, because the slowness of this pace, I just love the slowness of this pace, because I love that all that I can be present with in this process. I love these reflections becoming a part of something that, as it is resynthesized, I want it to be, I feel like there's different aspects that I can be present with in creating this, that gives its life more dimensions. And so in that, it actually takes time, and I can find appreciation for the time. Oh, the time. Oh, the time. Oh, this time. Oh, this time. Oh, this time. Oh, do, do. I wonder if this video is lagging at all. I'll find out. If you're there, you could tell me. Could you tell me if it's lagging? If not, then I'll find out later, maybe. So, building through these layers of creativity, these layers of sound, the orchestration of feelings throughout my existence. What am I present with? What am I releasing? What is emerging? What am I tending? Not just what, but how. Not just what, but how in each of them. How in each of them. How in each of them. Where is your reflection? Ooh. 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 And then there's silence. Silence. Is this on? Okay. Yes, we are singing and we are sewing together. We are stitching our poetry into the dress, the garment. And now I am sandwiching a seam. I am streaming a seam. I'm making a sandwich with my seams. And here, so first I'm thinking I need to baste this on before I continue sandwiching, because that will make it a lot easier. Now the question becomes, what thread will I baste it with? What thread will I pre-stitch it with? Perhaps this white thread. And I'm going to leave it, this needle and thread right where it is while I put the other one in place. While I pre-stitch the other one in place. And then we have a question. Or perhaps no question. Perhaps it is, if it is not a question, then perhaps it is something folded behind until the clarity emerges. And if it is clarity that is emerging, then our central point is found here and reflected. Here. And so that reflection finds its place, and we will hold it there until we can stitch it down. Before we can stitch it. And so every time I say so, it just makes me laugh, because that's what we're doing, but it's more than that, you know? It just means so much more. Every motion means so much more. It's so funny. I see there are 2 viewers. I want to know what you're thinking. But also, if you're listening to me, then you're listening to me. But there is space for you as well. What is the space? What is the space you speak of? What is this space you to speak of. Where am I? Oh, where am I? Am I floating? Have I found myself floating here? Have I found myself finally as I'm floating, as I'm flying above, soaring within my mind? Do you recognize the patterns before you? Do you recognize the patterns within you, within me? What is it recognizable? Is any part of it recognizable? Recognizable. And then I hear the bells. Oh, where is my bell? But I'm gonna get my bell. I'll get my bell, I'll get my bell. I'll get the bell. Here's the bell. Right at the neck hole. Okay, back to the anchoring, back to the pre-stitching, making the gathered sandwich, gathering for sandwiches tomorrow in the sun, gathering of my seams before the sandwich is begun. If I gather my seams before the sandwich was made, is there an offering that becomes an opening? Is this offering an opening like as if I never dreamt last night? But now I am. But now I am within myself as this has become the offering, the offering. If I had bells, my voice was bells. If my voice was bells, and you recognized me, what then? What then you hold? what then you hold, what then you hold, the vibration of a heart that meets the heart of the earth. What meets the heart of the earth? As if we've just begun. The feeling was raw, and I remember to celebrate my love. Was that what you call a celebration? Was that what you call a celebration? For what it is, for what it isn't, stitching along the gathering, stitching along this song you sing. It never ends, it surrounds. It surrounds you now. Something that glows. The tenderness. When you hear tenderness, how does your heart respond? When you hear the tender whisper, how does your heart respond? The calluses appear. Do the calluses, do they melt away your fear? Do they protect the fear? Does the fear create a callus? Which aspect of fear are you talking about? Is it? What is it? What is this? What? Why? As your callus melts away, as your callous melts away, drowns out the faded, glorious conception, the faded, glorious reconstruction, the glorious faded memory. How does the time pass through your being? Are you held between a curtain of here and yesterday? Or can you find yourself, it seems, to stream, to be the love you are, melting in the tenderness, hands in the corner, zooming into light. How is this what you asked for? How is this what you found? Not knowing what the stitches mean, the motion of exploration of what these folds, what do these folds contain? Is it a memory? Is it a fabrication of a story released? The story's been released. The story was once there, and now we're at the end of our gathering. We've incredibly reached the end of the gather that we started. And tomorrow we might be sandwiching this gather, or enclosing it might be a way to describe it. And so we've made it this far, anchoring our knot. And releasing. And so we've come to the end of our sewing session today. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And so it is with the goat bell that we calling on the elements of air, water, fire, and water. that we release the plane of imagination. Until next time, thank you for joining us on Reglow.